BMW, or better known as Bavarian Motor Works, one of the three major car corporations, is be safe to say, call it, in Germany. We have Mercedes, BMW, and of course the Volkswagen Group, but for these basic purposes we'll consider Audi. So today, the video we're considering, is this the worst model or models BMW has ever produced? Now the one we're going to be referring to today is the BMW 745, but this is the same thing that can be connected with the 545 and the 645. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. So the BMW 7 Series that we're talking about is the E65 model. It was produced from 2002 to 2008 when they finally landed production, and the new body style came out in 2009. The E65, that is the sedan, that's just a smaller body style. The E66 is the long wheelbase. E67 is the armored car that they produced, which is like all the political car stuff. And then the E68 is actually a really, if you call it a rare car, because it's a hydrogen powered sedan, but that's for a whole different day. It's called the Hydrogen 7, but that's a different view. Today we're talking about the BMW N62 engine, and why, in my official opinion, I believe this is the worst engine ever produced by BMW. Let's just dive right in. Okay, so the N62, it's a naturally aspirated double overhead cam V8, and as you know, we stated before, it was actually produced from 2002 to about 2008. That's US, might be different, I'm not too sure. Now this thing, it has they call it the double Vanos, which is basically the adjusters that sit on the camshafts, and those do tend to have problems, but the engine is not really that problematic, as we'll discuss in a little bit. So what we have here is that this engine produced about 325 horsepower at about 6,500 RPM. I want to say, if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me in the comment section below. But the engine itself has a few, there are more serious problems than, let's say, a normal engine would have. So one of the main things that I want to talk about here is that these engines are very much like, well, all of them are pretty much prone to, they start smoking really bad. As it cut out of the exhaust, they'll start smoking this blue smoke, and the repair, it can go anywhere from like 3 to up 10,000. I've heard of quotes on forums. It's pretty insane. Now, the problem that causes that is that there are these valve seals on the valves, obviously, and when BMW created the engine, these valves, basically they're little rubber seals that sit on the valves for oil. They're really cheap, and they get worn out really easy after driving. The engine's constantly heating, there's a lot of heat in there running. They get worn out, and they just start oil coming through, and the oil gets burned, and then it smokes, and it goes through the exhaust. Now the only way to fix that is you gotta take pretty much half the engine off the car. You take the heads off, and you have to replace the valve seals. And that's why I said it's either sometimes from anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000. So it's a really big job. I think in one of the programs that a lot of the shops use, it's quoted anywhere from like 20 to 30 hours of labor. That's labor alone. That's not counting parts, because you're obviously gonna have to change the valves. I mean, not the valves, the valve seals. You're gonna have to machine the heads, oil filter. So all in purposes, you're in, any normal cost would be about, I'd say, $5,000, but don't quote me on that. That's mechanics, they quote their own jobs. But these engines, aside from that, they also have I'm not sure how to explain it right. They have like these rods that sit on the heads, and BMW created it because it was actually it's supposed to be something like an engineering marvel, if you call it, and it's a great idea. It just doesn't work. They're supposed to cool the engine, but the problem that a lot of mechanics on the forums have discussed is that they build up carbon deposits and they get clogged up, so the engine can't, it's not being cooled, and the rods aren't doing their job. So I think, again, quote me in the comments if I'm wrong, the check engine light does come on, and again, heads come off, gotta clean them out, and they're really hard to clean, because carbon deposit is generally one of the hardest things to clean out of an engine, because it's pretty much melted. I don't know if you call it, like, unburned gas melted to the block. Okay, so in terms of the rods, I did actually find out a little bit now. This is actually after all the editing. So it's called the secondary air injection system of the car, and that's pretty much what the main issue of the engine is. If you know, aside from the smoking, from the oil stem seals, but it's called the secondary air injection system. That's the thing I was referring to. I could be wrong. Definitely feel free to correct me, but that's the major issue this engine has, aside from the smoking, and then you know all the oil leaks the thing has, and coolant leaks as well. So it's really bad. But that's the engine. They have issues. They leak the valve covers, but that's a lot of engines. So we're not really gonna bash on the engine for that. Um, Now the transmission itself, it also has a problem. But you know, for all intents and purposes, we're gonna talk about the engine more. But just to talk about it here, the problem with the engine, I mean the problem with the transmission, excuse me, the problem with the transmission in this car is that there's this thing, the computer itself for the transmission, it's called the Megatronic, and that does tend to go bad. The little seals inside the Megatronic, or seals, whatever you want to call them, rubber parts, they go bad, or the computer itself will go bad, and you can't change it with a used part. A lot of the engine parts, if they're too expensive, you just use used parts that are still working off a donor car or junkyard or anything. You can, but for the Megatronic, you can't do that because once it's programmed to that specific car, to the specific VIN number, to the specific transmission. So I highly advise you, if you're having this issue, don't buy a used one because you're just wasting your money. It doesn't serve you any purpose. If you're gonna do it, you just buy the whole transmission and do it. Or if you want to keep the transmission and you want to do it, the Megatronic is actually, I think, I might be wrong, but I think it's $3,900 from the dealer. That's wholesale parts. You know, shops obviously get it for, I think they get it for less, but I'm not too sure. But it's $3,900 for, or maybe even maybe it's 4,000. It's around that area. It's about 445 maybe. For a new Megatronic, and you can't just go in there and pick it up. They have to order it by VIN because, as I said, it's programmed to the car itself. They order it, comes in, they change it out, new oil, and you're on your way. But considering how much work it's gonna, the labor and the part alone is $4,000, and then you're gonna have to buy oil. Now, a lot of cars, when you change the transmission oil, you take the oil pan off, and the filter is sitting on either on the bottom. Yeah, it's usually like on top of the oil pan. When you take the oil pan off, the filter's there. It's the first thing you see. It's underneath the computer. But what BMW did in here is that the oil pan and the filter are the same thing. It sounds really weird, but you can't change just the filter. You have to change the whole oil pan. It's really stupid because the part alone is like $100 something. So it's really dumb. So if you're just servicing your car, you're gonna spend a lot of money, one, buying the oil, and two, the oil pan, because it's the filter, so you need to change it. Now, while we're talking about the transmission real quick, the oil that you use in this car is very specific oil. You can't just use any oil from your AutoZone or anything. It has to be specific ZF. That's the name of the transmission. It's ZF transmission. You can't use any other oil for this car because if you do, you will break the transmission. If you put any other oil in this transmission, I guarantee you will throw the transmission in about 1,000 miles. You will fry the discs and everything, because this oil that the transmission uses, it works with the pump specifically. I think I've read on the forums, so I could be wrong, but I know for sure you have to use specific oil because the way the clutches last, the other oil isn't. The pump inside the transmission isn't able to create enough pressure with the cheap oil, and thus you'll fry the discs. So, and then buy transmission, and that's another labor job that you're gonna have to do. But this car, I would highly advise against buying any 45 model. Now, you can definitely go in the comments, and I know they make the 545s are really cool cars, but I personally would not buy one because I think the negatives outweigh the positives of the car. Yeah, it sounds great with the straight pipe exhaust system, but it's a V8. It's not cheap. It's a BMW. If it was a Honda or Toyota or something, I guess, but it's a BMW. It's gonna cost you a lot of money to fix this car. As I said though, if it's smoking, or if it even, if you can see every time, okay, the best way to tell if the car's smoking if you're test driving it is if you can have somebody drive behind you, like a friend or somebody, while you're on the test drive. And when you go from a standstill and you give it gas, if your friend can see that the car smokes from the back, like even if it's a little bit, if it just lets go a little bit, that's how you know the car's already in the early stages of the valve seals, basically failing. And it's really bad. After they go bad, like completely, you'll start up the car and it'll pretty much be like you're in the middle of a cloud. Like you can't see anything. So if you're, you know, if you can't afford all that, these cars are cheap. 745s are actually really cheap. I've seen some for like $2,500. When this car came out, when BMW revealed this car in like 2001, and when it released 2002 here in the States, this thing was just like, this was the engineering marvel of the world. This thing had so many modules in the car. The new iDrive system. This thing was amazing what it could do. But BMW didn't figure out how terrible the engine was until 2005. That's when they realized they had to update the engine. Thus, we have the new N62, you know, quotation marks, updated. That's a 750, which doesn't have the same... Okay, it still smokes, but it doesn't have the cooling issues that the 745 had with the rods. And, you know, it's a better engine because this one produces about 370 horsepower. So it's quicker than the last engine, and it's able to move the body weight of the BMW 7 Series because it's a big car. We can't deny that. It's heavy as well, especially if you get the long wheelbase car. But what I'm trying to say here is that if you really want a E65 BMW 7 Series or an E60 BMW 6 Series, or you want a 5 Series, what I'm going to recommend is I really beg you, please go with the 650, 550, 750. Save yourself the headache of the 45s. But I can't, you know, obviously I can't. It's your judgment, your opinion. That's whatever you want to do. Yeah, the 45s are a lot cheaper than the 50s. Actually, not by a lot. Maybe a little bit less, but you know, generally they tend to be a little bit cheaper, on the cheaper side, but honestly, I'm not willing to pay about $2,000 difference, if that, and then my car will break, and then I gotta spend more money to fix it than it's actually worth. That is the dumbest thing you can possibly do. There's no reason you should be putting more money in a car that's not worth that. I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time and watching this video. I hope some of you actually will consider my opinion. You know, I'm not trying to be like, oh no, we need to burn all the 45s out there. You know, they had their ups, they had their downs, like every car, but these were just terrible engines. I'm sorry, that's my opinion. Now, my opinion's my opinion. But I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time and seeing this video today. As I stated before, I know I'm repeating myself, but please leave a like, comment, and maybe even subscribe, because we're gonna go on. You know, we're gonna bash Mercedes, we're gonna bash Audi, we're gonna bash the Volkswagen Group, we're gonna bash every other company in the world, because you know that's why we today on YouTube and on the internet do with our opinions, right? But I hope I informed you a little bit. I guess. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching.